Yo, what's going on, Swordcast fans? Um, it's Noveliss, and these are my top 10 favorite wrestling matches of 2023. Let's go. I got a lot of honorable mentions, as everyone knows. I absolutely love pro wrestling. 2023 was a good year. It was a year where we saw certain guys assert themselves as unquestionably being in the best in the world conversation, and we saw guys that have been doing it reassert themselves at the top of the mountain, kind of showing that they still got it. Honorable mentions, so many. Will Ospreay versus Shota Umino at Power Struggle. Willow Nightingale versus Athena at Death Before Dishonor. Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. Walter versus Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. Naito versus Kazuchika Okada at G133, the finals of G1. Kenny Omega versus MJF on Collision. FTR versus Bullet Club Gold, the 2 out of 3 falls tag match. That was one of the best tag matches I've seen in a really long time. That was on AEW Collision. Will Ospreay versus Mike Bailey at Bound for Glory. Mike Bailey's so underrated. Katsuhiko Nakajima versus Kento Miyahara at All Japan Mania X. This was a show that happened right at the end of the year, so it was dope. A good match. Will Ospreay versus Zack Sabre Jr. at Royal Quest 3 New Japan. That was one of my favorite matches as well. Bryan Danielson versus Roosh on Dynamite. Just one of the many spectacular TV matches that Bryan Danielson had this year. Kenny Omega versus El Hijo del Vikingo on Dynamite. That match was insane. Swerve versus Hangman Page from Wrestle Dream. Wrestle Dream was such a good show. Mercedes Moné versus Kairi Sane at Battle in the Valley, New Japan. That match there was a time when that show had been announced, and that match was the only match that was announced and the show sold out. Shout out to women's wrestling. But let's go, man. Let's get into this top 10. Starting things off at number 10. Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks in the no disqualification strap match at AEW All Out. This match was just a completely unexpected masterpiece. The greatest strap match of all time that was thrown together at the last possible moment before the pay-per-view card was finalized. Bryan Danielson returns to the ring after suffering a broken arm that's not even all the way healed to literally whip Ricky Starks into shape as he is the pissed off young star who keeps having his moment taken away from him by circumstances out of his control. Insert CM Punk. This felt like Danielson initiating Starks into pro wrestling stardom. They beat the absolute crap out of each other. Absolute Ricky Starks. No pun intended. This was a star-making performance for Starks and another banger by Bryan Danielson this year. Danielson's bloody face was one of the best images to come out of pro wrestling in 2023. The brutality, the violence, the drama, the story is clear as day. Yo, they were hitting each other in the face with the strap. Ridiculous. I would say this was probably the biggest pleasant surprise of 2023 for me. I mean, what can I say? Bryan Danielson's the greatest. Number 9, Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita, AEW All Out. An underrated banger and a match I was personally waiting for all year after the whole Don Callis turning on Kenny Omega thing. Kenny Omega in a big match at a pay-per-view, consider the show stolen every time and give him match of the night. Every single time this is the situation. This was a high-octane match that felt like a G1 Climax encounter. Omega took some nasty bumps in this one too. Avalanche Blue Thunder Bomb? Are you kidding me? It's a stiff explosive match full of high impact offense, and it never slows down. A Kenny Omega special, if you will. Even the Don Callis interference was actually done well this time around. Omega's unselfishness isn't talked about enough. Guy is always putting people over and making them look excellent while doing it. This was the biggest win of Takeshita's career and one of the best clean wins over a huge star in AEW's young history. It's kind of a shame Takeshita hasn't done much since, but I love this match. Number 8, Adam Hangman Page versus Swerve Strickland, AEW Full Gear. Now, this type of match is not my cup of tea at all and never has been, but I was here for the star-making performance of Swerve Strickland and Adam Page becoming a straight-up AEW icon. As far as death matches having actual wrestling squeezed in between, drinking your opponent's blood, this was an absolute spectacle. You couldn't look away from it even if you wanted to. Magnetic brutality, Swerve hitting a 450 on Page while he was covered in broken glass. It was next level violence and athleticism. One of the most brutal matches I've ever seen. Number 7, Will Ospreay versus Tetsuya Naito, G1 Climax 33 Block Finals. No more clap crowds means dramatic G1 Climax matches are back. No wrestler on the planet alters their offensive movesets to further serve a specific purpose like Tetsuya Naito does. In this match, example, hip toss but over the knee to further soften up Ospreay's already injured neck for Destino. So brilliant. Naito's G1 run this year feels a lot like Tanahashi in 2018. This is our boy's last run on top. This match was awesome. Ospreay is so good. These two have underrated chemistry as both their matches last year were good as well. The big thing here though, Naito being legitimately knocked out by an Ospreay kick. This moment took the match to another level in my opinion. Sloppiness down the closing stretch of a match is kind of fire to me sometimes because it shows exhaustion. The drama was at a tipping point, adding to the uncertainty of the whole situation. Oh yeah, the crowd is going absolutely bonkers through all of this as well. Let's not forget the ability of Ospreay to navigate through a situation like that. It was amazing. And just when Naito looked legitimately like a zombie, Destino! Excellent. Number 6, IWGP Heavyweight Champion Kazuchika Okada versus Shingo Takagi at the New Beginning in Osaka. I think this is the most underrated match of 2023. Okada is at his best to me when he has to survive his opponent, and that's exactly what this is. Okada trying to survive the relentless pace of Shingo and him constantly throwing bombs at the champion. Shingo is one of the last couple of people on the New Japan roster that can pull this Okada out. When Kaz is the champion, we take his title defenses for granted. I will never not be mesmerized by the Okada dropkick. This match slaps. Okada has to dig deep in his bag to keep up with Shingo's offense. The Cobra Flosion and that landslide Michinoku driver are nasty setups for the Rainmaker. They had a couple of good matches in the COVID era, but the clap crowds never did them true justice, and this is their best match. Both guys, absolute masters in delivering big matches, and this was no exception. I'm all in for another Shingo Takagi championship reign in the near future. One of the most consistent performers ever. That wraps up part 1. Tune into the next video for part 2 of my top 10 favorite matches of 2023 when we go over the top 5. Peace.